Hey, Chris, you hear me?
Yes, Howard. Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, I'm on mute? Okay.
No, you're not muted. I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pia helped me start to get in. I called Pia on the phone. He helped me get in. So,
Okay, hi Howie, hi everyone.
good evening. How are you?
Hi, good. So I see that we are live now. So I want to welcome everyone. This is the September Queens Community Board 6 General Meeting. It feels like it's been a while, but I guess it's only been like 2 months, which does seem like a while, and I guess is a while. Oh, you know what? I have to mute something. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. That is a work from home situation that arrives. Oh, and now I moved my. Okay, we're off to a great start, everyone. Let me start again. My name is Alexa Weitzman. I'm chair of Queens Community Board 6. This is the September general meeting. Welcome. We're on a new platform, kind of same, different look, but same great taste, as they say. We're on WebEx now. It's a little bit different, but for the people participating, if you're on the screen, you're a Queens Community Board 6 member or staff or someone that's coming to speak with us tonight. And if you are not on the screen, then you are an attendee. You can listen along on the WebEx platform, but you're not going to be participating unless we have heard from you and you've signed up to speak. We're also now live streaming to YouTube. That's a new change. We're doing that because there's a transcription that's available on YouTube, and it just seems like a better option there's kind of an effort to put all of the board's meetings on YouTube so that there's kind of everything is congruous. One thing that we did lose in the translation from Zoom to WebEx is that we've unfortunately haven't been able to close caption in live time this meeting. We worked trying to get that done this week through Do It, the city's technology office, but they weren't able to get us to the finish line there. So I apologize. I know that was really useful for community members, but there will be closed captioning on YouTube. After 24 hours, they generate closed captioning there. So I'm sorry it's not live, but there will be on the YouTube channel. So that said, we have a pretty lengthy agenda this evening. And we'll start as we do with the public forum. And where's my list of public speakers? Here. So everyone has an opportunity to sign up to give public comment, and we ask that you do so by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. You can always contact the office and let us know your concerns. If you do so by the end of business day tomorrow when you'd like it on the public record, we'll extend that invitation to you. And we have a few people tonight. People from agencies and organizations generally have 5 minutes, and people, community members have 3 minutes. We've asked if folks tonight would keep their comments brief, just because we do have a very lengthy agenda. So thank you to those that were able to cut them down to 3 minutes. I know that you know, we're happy to hear from you, and we're always happy to send out information after you present to the board and post it on our social channels. So with that said, we will first hear from Joseph Jenkins from the New York City Department of Aging, talking about DFDA's My Ride program.
Alexa, I don't see Mr. Jenkins in the attendees list unless he's already been promoted.
Good evening. I'm here.
There he is.
Where? Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Mr. Jenkins.
Hello.
Do you have the
Mr. Chair,
opportunity to?
I just want to indicate to speakers that I'm the timekeeper, so I'm going to give you a 30-second warning. when you're getting close to your time.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share a quick PowerPoint and introduce myself. My name is Joseph Jenkins. I am the implementation manager for DIFTA MyRide. Can you see my PowerPoint?
I don't yet. Does someone?
I do.
I do, the pilot features.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I'm here to quickly remind you about a New York City Department for the Aging
Mr.
Initiative.
Jenkins, there's a little bit of an echo. If anyone is not muted, then and you're not, Mr. Jenkins should be the only one unmuted right now. So please mute yourself. And sorry, with that, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I first want to thank the community board for helping us get the word out about this program. We are launching, we've launched the application, and just to remind you of the features, the rides will be given by CTG, Corporate Transport Group, and they were selected through RFP. They'll be providing door-to-door car service for participants of DIFTA MyRide. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service, and rides will be given throughout the 5 boroughs, Nassau and Westchester. This is a 3-year pilot, and each year there'll be 1,038 participants that will be able to have some free rides over an 8-month period. So the pilot will cover over 3,000 participants over the 3 years. You're looking at a picture of the app that participants can use to order rides, but there's also a website where you can order a ride as well as a dispatch. So if you are not using a computer or a smartphone, you can just call and order a ride. This pilot is open to residents of this community board, as well as 13 other community boards, but there are 5 in Queens. And you have to be 60 and over or 18 and over and have a disability. Participants are randomly selected, and once you can apply by submitting an application online. If you are selected, proof of age, residency, disability is required. So we opened the application up on September 13th, and we're going to close the window on October 8th. About a week after that, if you're selected, you receive an invitation. Thank you. You receive an invitation and be invited to an onboarding. This is the website where you can go and get an application. You can apply online. If you need one mailed, there's a number on the website that you can use to request an application, but mailed applications are due by next Friday, postmarked by next Friday. So thank you for the time. That's my presentation. This is the flyer that we've been sending around. And again, thank you for your help in spreading the word. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for coming to present this. We've been putting this up on our social channels and we've sent it around to our board, and we can tell that there's a lot of interest. And we got the numbers from I guess your office, and it seems like there's been a lot of applications from our district. So we'll keep them coming in. It definitely seems like it's a really promising program. So thank you for sharing a little bit more about it tonight.
Alexa, I had raised my hand. I don't know if that clicked.
I didn't see it, but okay.
I just wanted to know that if I could just ask a quick question, that the type of vehicles that you would have. Now I am handicapped and I have to go in a large size electric wheelchair. Will those kind of vehicles be able to accommodate me or people like me? Or is this really for people who are older or have a relative, or don't have as significant a handicap?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We will have the wheelchair accessible vehicles. on the application, you can indicate your disability and the need, and those are the vehicles that will be available to you if you're selected in the pilot.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I see we have one more question from Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi there.
Oh.
I take Accessoride, and CTG is one of the major taxi brokers that CTG uses. Will these be medallion taxis, or will they be regular sedans, vans, and SUVs? And next, will the drivers be trained in handling the basics of taking care of people with disabilities? And the most important question is, will these drivers be through another broker? CTG is using a number of, they're outsourcing to organizations such as Miles and others. And since all of these, in the last few months, it has become pretty bad, Accessoride with Miles, because none of their drivers are trained to take care of individuals with minor disabilities. And the last question is, will they be a shared ride or a single ride? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. So it's a single ride. You can invite a caretaker or a family member with you if you like. The drivers will be trained. We are overseeing the training curriculum. New York City, the mayor's office for people with disability is vetting the training and vetting it to make sure it's suitable for people with disabilities. They are using sedan vehicles and SUVs, not the medallion. And there was one more question.
I think it was about training. Was it?
Yeah, so, right, MOPD is vetting the curriculum and we're overseeing the training. We're going to be making sure that customer service is high. Yeah, we've heard the concern that you've had before, and we are trying to address it. So thank you.
The question was, will they be outsourcing through other companies? For example, Accessoride, CTG does
Thank you.
Miles and other companies.
Yeah, so my understanding is that the primary source will be their drivers, but they said they may need to outsource if there's a capacity issue. So
it's not a failure with Accessoride.
Okay.
Since they got Miles, I have had more issues with my rides than anything else. In fact, drivers who refuse to put on masks, drivers who refuse to be helpful, drivers who have damaged my rollator by trying to take it apart to fit it in the trunk, and drivers who are rude, and drivers who are impatient.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry you had that experience. This is the first year of this pilot. This is the vendor that was selected before I was hired. But we're going to do our best to address these issues so that there's a very different experience for our riders.
How can I contact anyone? How can I contact anybody at DIPSA about this?
I'll put it in the chat, but on the flyer there's Agent Connect. That's DIPSA's call center, and you can know when it's
directly connected, Pat, after the meeting. I'll put that on my list. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you, Mr. Jenkins, to connect you to.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Up next, we have Gabrielle Napolitano Swift from PS Family NYC. Have we found her to promote her?
Hi.
Yes, she should be on.
Great. So you can keep your comments brief. We have a timekeeper. He'll let you know when you're at 30 seconds left. thank you so much for being here.
Okay, great. Hi, I just wanted to introduce PS Family and offer our services to the community. We are an agency that is funded through the DOE. We are responsible for managing one of the largest family childcare networks in New York City. PS Family works directly with in-home childcare providers, supporting their businesses and helping families find low-cost and free childcare in Brooklyn and Queens. We provide resources to build childcare businesses with professional development workshops, so training, and we also assist navigating the DOE requirements and paperwork for families and businesses, which, as many people know, DOE paperwork is quite overwhelming. So we are here to help the community. I just wanted to get the word out. We are looking for providers to join our network, and we're having an info session, a free info session, virtual info session on Wednesday, September 29th. I can send the information for that to the board in case anybody is interested. And if you are looking for low cost or free childcare, we are here to help. So please spread the word, and we're here for the community. That's it. I think I was pretty close to like a minute.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And yeah, just get that stuff into us and we can send it out. Probably all these things will go out to our board members and post it on Monday. So thank you so much for being here. And next up is Odette Wilkins from Wired Broadband, Inc. Have we found Odette?
I have found Odette, but for some reason, when I click make panelist, she's not shifting over.
Okay. Does she have to accept something on her end, or?
I don't know. I've clicked several times.
Okay.
And it's just not working.
I think it just worked. I did it. Maybe it had to be a host for some reason and not a co-host.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start my video as well. Hold on one second. I don't know if you can see me. Hopefully you'll be able to see me. Okay, well, oh, there we go. Okay. Okay,
So,
great.
we have a timekeeper. I know you've requested to stay at the 5 minutes, so we'll let you know when there's 30 seconds left. If you can keep it as brief as possible, we would appreciate it. Welcome. Welcome.
Great. So let me just set myself up here. I did have some slides, but I don't see that there's an opportunity to share my slides at the moment. Hello, good evening, everyone. We have a problem, and the health of our community is at risk. 5G wireless cell towers are cropping up on rooftops, if you may have noticed. These rooftop antenna farms produce a large amount of radiation. There is no one monitoring exposure limits except the telecom industry, and we only have their say so that they comply. Unfortunately, back in 2015 or so, there was a Wall Street Journal article expose that at least 10% of New York City rooftop farms exceeded the FCC exposure limits. I am a technology attorney. I've worked in technology for about 20 years, worked on multi-million-dollar deals for multinational finance companies, entertainment companies, and technology companies. I'm sure you may have heard of all of them. And I really draw the line where technology harms people. I think technology can be a great thing. If it helps people, that's great. And that's why I became a technology attorney. But when it starts to harm people, that's where I draw the line, even as an attorney, as a human, and as a human being. Radio frequency radiation can be very dangerous, and it penetrates into children's skulls much more easily than adult skulls, but it still also penetrates into people's physiology. And this is what we're dealing with in Forest Hills. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have antenna farms on top of a building on Austin Street, right across from Bear Burger. We have it on top of Alberto's restaurant. We have it on top of the Cinemark, which looks like Disneyland. We even have new antenna farm cropping up on Burn Street, which is towards the homes in the police precinct. Now, on Austin Street, right where the antenna farms are, there was one day I was passing by, and there was a pregnant woman who was being escorted to the emergency room, and she did not look good. she had fainted. Her husband confirmed that they actually lived in the apartment right underneath those cell towers. And he said, but what can we do? So what I did is I went to the Little League field. The Little League field has on one side a building with 5G antennas. I have an RF meter, a radio frequency meter, that measures the amount of radio frequency. And it is set at a particular threshold of 1,000 microwatts per meter squared. I went to field 1, and at the perimeter closest to the building, it measured at 198,000 microwatts. Field 1, walking off the field, it was 391,000 microwatts. At the vending machine, it was 226 microwatts. These are hundreds of times above what otherwise would cause biological harm. Now, the problem with EMF, or electromagnetic frequency, or radio frequency, is that you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it. It's like the gas from your stove, except with gas, they put a smell in it to alert you to danger. There is no danger alert with electromagnetic frequency, and then when you get hit with it, it's too late. So as an example of this, there's a woman who lives on the top floor, and right above her head, they placed all these 5G antennas and other wireless devices. She immediately started getting very bad symptoms: heart arrhythmia, sleep deprivation, shortness of breath, irritable bowel syndrome, and persistent nausea and vomiting. These are typical symptoms of radiation sickness. And her doctor confirmed that they were related to the antennas that were placed on top of her head. Not only did the doctor relate it to that, but she said that there were other patients that she had in the same building who had similar symptoms at the same time. So we're having a little bit of a crisis right now with this, because more and more people are being exposed to this. And right now we need answers. We need to know what companies are putting up these antenna farms, who's approving them, and why are they being approved without public notice or an opportunity to comment. There should be no more antennas put up on any roofs or anywhere, and no 5G boxes anywhere in Forest Hills. The FCC,
Daddy, I have a half a minute.
Thank you. The Federal Communications Commission gave a categorical exemption of all 5G installations from environmental review. The DC Circuit Court of Appeals slammed them down and said, no, you cannot do that, but they've continued nonetheless. So what we need to do is we need to engage our state, local, and federal officials to turn the tide on this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Odette. Next up is Shania Baker.
I don't see a Shania Baker, but there's a number of people who called in and they're not identified by name.
We're not going to be able to do that. So maybe we'll just keep our eyes on that and see if she comes up, because we can't, once actually we promote people, it seems like we can't unpromote them. So our screens are just going to get more and more if we promote all the people that have called in. So we'll come back if Shania has joined. And if you hear us, Shania, and you did call in, if you can call in with a video with your name. And up next is Leslie Harf.
Yeah, just saw Leslie. Here you go. Leslie should be a panelist.
Yes. Leslie, are you there? I see you on our panelist list, so you should be able to speak.
There we go. Can I also put my video on somehow?
That's on your end, yep.
Start video. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is my first time on WebEx and my first time coming to a community board meeting. So thank you for providing a forum for me to speak. I'm going to read from something that I typed up. I've been a resident of Forest Hills for 22 years. In the past few months, I've noticed a drastic increase in the number of motorized bikes and scooters riding on our commercial streets, on the sidewalks, the wrong way down one-way streets, driving very fast. I've been saying to myself, it's just a matter of time before one of these guys runs into me, my son, my husband, my friends, and badly injures us. My fears were verified when I heard last week that a friend of mine who works at New York Sports Club was knocked unconscious by a motorized bike and suffered a severe brain injury. He's now in a rehab. This motivated me to get involved. From what I'm hearing from the community, our local police are not making this issue a priority. I can't speak to this. This is what I'm hearing from people around me. I'm looking at all angles of this issue. How do we put pressure on the delivery services that employ these drivers who are driving recklessly on our sidewalks? My husband, who owns an insurance company, asked around in the industry and found that these delivery drivers are all independent contractors with W-9s. They are supposed to be insured, but most are not. He found out that the large delivery services, Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats, do not take out their own insurance policies, but rather choose to settle claims when they occur. They are supposed to require the independent contractors, the delivery drivers, to have insurance, but often they simply do not. There is no incentive for the drivers to be careful.
Leslie, half a minute.
But what if the delivery drivers started getting pulled over and asked to produce their insurance certificates? What if the large delivery services started to get large fines when their drivers were found to be uninsured? What if Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats were to be audited to see how many of their W-9 employees were actually uninsured? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
If you want to send us the prepared statement, we can put that in our minutes verbatim and we could send it around to the members of the board as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our public comment section. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, you can always email the board with your concerns, and our staff at the board is very capable of taking it up as it comes in, or you can send in public comments, up until tomorrow, and we can put it on the record. So that said, we will move on. I think what we'll do now is actually attendance. So if you're just joining us, I'll do a little station identification. Alexa Weitzman from Queens Community Board 6. This is our September board meeting. The people on the board are board members or people that have signed up to present. If you're here as an attendee on WebEx, you're just kind of watching what happens, but you won't be interactive, and you won't be able to interact or participate, and you won't see yourselves on the screen. We're also live streaming this on YouTube. Unfortunately, due to the switch to WebEx, we don't yet have it set up to be closed captioned as we're live, but it will be closed captioned on YouTube within 24 hours. I think that's it. Board members, we're going to be doing the same thing using the raise hand function. It's in the same place it was on Zoom, basically. But I'm still getting used to this, and like I said, it's a little cruel to switch it up now, but we're doing great so far. Okay, so with that, I'm going to do attendance. Michael.
Present.
Anicia.
Present.
Kavish.
Present.
Peter.
Present.
And if I've seen you, I'm gonna do that. Heidi, I saw. Sheridan?
Present.
Yeah. Do you have the list?
I've been keeping track. Do you want me to just call out the people that I
You're
didn't
the
see?
best. Thank you.
Okay. Sheridan Chu, Gail Gordon, Brendan Griffith, Pramit Kumar, Ralph Leonard, Jack Medina.
I heard something when you said Ralph. Is Ralph here?
It's Ralph couldn't get in. He called in. Is there a way for us to promote him?
not without knowing his name. So, okay, so
I have his phone number.
that's, we can't right now. Sorry. Yeah. So, okay.
Jack
Who else?
Medina,
Jack Medina. Okay.
Raphael Nektalov, Gladys Sandoval, Jean Silva, Robert Tamiev, Irina Tamieva, Joan Weston, Edwin Wong, and Daniel Yakubov.
Okay.
Any of those people present, just unmute yourself and let us know.
Yeah, we do have one call-in number I see, but they're muted. I sent them a request to unmute.
No, that's
That's
Miriam,
the one that's listed as a panelist is Miriam Burfus.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, great. So we will move on to the next order of business, which is the minutes. They were probably sent a very long time ago at this point, but you've all theoretically had a long time to review them. So we're just going to do a communal unmute. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye.
For a motion, not an.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Peter. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. So now we're going to say yes if we agree. So all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Does anyone not want the minutes approved? There's a better way for me to put that, but unmute yourself now and or forever hold your peace. Okay, great. Minutes are approved. I'm going to keep this brief because I'm telling everyone else tonight to keep it brief. So I'm going to take what I'm dishing out or whatever that saying is, but Nagtamak to those celebrating. Happy Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. Happy Autumn Equinox. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Someone is not back to muted because I hear myself. So everyone just remute themselves now. So here we are. You know, it seemed over the summer when we weren't meeting that we did take some steps forward. It does seem like we've had to come back a little bit, and I am so grateful for all of your support in the push to continue meeting remotely. So I'm thrilled to be kind of here with you under these circumstances, you know, to keep us safe, and we can get back together in person right now. We're thankful to the legislature, to the Queensborough president, who was really supportive of our campaign to kind of keep it remote, and ultimately, yeah, the Governor Hochul and the legislature that made the change to the open meetings law. So right now, it's slated to be changed back to in person in January, and we'll keep everyone, you know, updated as to how that happens as we get a little closer. A lot did happen over the summer in addition to COVID, but COVID is still with us, and I'm always thinking of all the community members that have been sick or struggling still with long COVID or new diagnosis, and those that have lost family members. You know, I send my condolences. We also had a really devastating tonight on another night of a lot of rain, a devastating storm, Hurricane Ida, which really did affect a lot of people in our district as well. And I just want to send my support to those that, you know, lost loved ones, or you know, their apartments were flooded, or vehicles, or you know, just anything. And please know that our office is here for you. If you're listening, or someone, you know, you hear from someone who says, I don't know what to do about, you know, what happened to my whatever in Hurricane Ida, please direct them to our board office and we can help them navigate the resources that are available. Vaccines are also available, safe and free for everyone over 12 years old. If you have any questions about where to get your vaccine, you can also reach out to the office. And where am I? So, you know, we were kind of on a break. We did have a executive committee meeting during that brief time that we were had to meet in person. We had a meeting outside in a park, and it was really nice to meet everyone there. There were some board members and the executive committee, and that was before it was switched back to meeting remotely. But now that we're back and board meetings have started and committee meetings are starting, I want to just encourage all the board members to think about what you can do to participate and support your community on this board. And, you know, if you want to talk about anything, any roles or any ideas that you have, you know, you can reach out to me and we can start conversations, because I'm really looking to all of you to, you know, give your all moving forward. And even though we weren't meeting, the board office was open all summer. And so I want to thank Frank and Christine and Maria and Barbara for really holding down the fort and really doing a great job, as they always do, for our community. And with that, I will send it over to Mr. Galuccio, our district manager. I've never called you Mr. Galuccio in my life.
No, you haven't. That's true. But thank you. I feel like I'm an old teacher again. So thank you, Alexa. I just want everybody to know that we're all meeting virtually because our chair wrote a letter way back when to not only the governor, but everybody and her brother and sister with regard to meeting in person, meeting via Zoom or WebEx at this point. And that little letter that we sent out was strong enough to get the rest of the city of New York and a number of legislators to actually act on it after we were told they weren't budging an inch on this. And when we went to a library opening up in Rego Park, not the opening, but thank you to the electeds for giving us the money. We spoke to a number of electeds, and it was no, it's not happening. And a couple of weeks later, it happened. So thank you, Alexa. And on behalf, I've been said to say this to you, been told to say this to you, 59 community boards in the city of New York, even the ones that didn't want to meet Zoom, say thank you for leading that fight. Up until yesterday, I heard it. Kudos to you and everybody else on this board that supported you. Yesterday, the good news was that we were on Queens Boulevard with the mayor and the borough president and Commissioner DOT, and the completion, it was announced that the completion of the bike lanes in our end of the world, Community Board 6, it was going to happen. Thank you, Peter, for that little horn blowing. So it was a good day. People were smiling, and we heard all kinds of stories. I was supposed to say, but they never actually got around to calling me. And I've said it many times that every time I said I was from CB6, they would say, "Oh, Boulevard of Death." And I would just cringe because I knew it was changing. And thanks to Peter and all the transportation alternative people that are out there that have brought this to fruition with a little bit more to do throughout the borough. The borough president was ecstatic with that, and so was the mayor, who again thanked our chair for leading the lead, if you will. Next most important thing that happened, as the way I see it, was Ida. Horrific. We had deaths in this district, absolutely horrible. I paid some visits to people on Selfridge Street, up in Rego Park. I was with FEMA, I was with the borough president, and the former member of our board, Lynn, who actually led, they all were leading and telling people who, what, where, and when, what to do. From my experience in Sandy, all of you know that my house was underwater way back when. And I just added my 2 cents by saying, take pictures, because FEMA and everybody else in the comptroller's office, whoever you're dealing with, your insurance company, will certainly lose whatever you send them. So you better have copies and you better have pictures. A lot of people took that in stride, and that was a good thing. Another successful point, and the Department of Transportation via John O'Neill this week and gave us a 2-page list of things that we've been asking for and begging for quite some time. I was ecstatic about the Union Turnpike over there off Boston Street and the build out over there, and all kinds of things that they've come up with, especially Mark's famous on Alderton Street. And so, right, Mark, we were happy. We were smiling that day. I couldn't believe how much stuff they came through. Thanks to the Transportation Committee for taking that lead and my staff doing a follow-up, because without follow-up, we're nowhere. It's been a successful, for the most part, summer. A lot of things happen, but a couple of the committees will bring up what I don't want to steal their thunder. But we're there, and we're there every day, and we support everything that you want us to do. And we look forward to the future, because there are a lot of things that are coming up in our capital and expense budget that you guys will be talking about that will certainly concern you with the future of CB6. Like I just spoke a little while ago about these antennas that are up there. That's a real thing. The DIFTA situation, we've been fighting for that for years. We got on board CB6 because we have a fair amount of seniors. As far as the precinct, I just want to mention this. Someone mentioned a little while ago about the motorcycles, I shouldn't say motorcycles, motorized vehicles up and down the neighborhood. It's true, but the precinct has reached, I've reached out to the precinct, and they've been cooperative. They're going to be cooperating even more to see what can be done. I mean, I myself had a situation coming back from the press conference the other day on Austin Street. These guys passing red lights on the sidewalk. I was shocked that they were breaking the law. So it was just unbelievable. I can't even talk about it. It made me crazy. But one more thing for everybody, attendance. We just sent to Borough Hall the attendance for the first 6 months of the year. Now, I know it's COVID and et cetera, et cetera. But the borough president and the Borough Hall staff, they are on top of that. That was one of the first things he said with his administration. He was going to seriously look at attendance. So keep that in the back of your mind. I don't want to be the teacher in the front of class mentioning and talking about attendance, but certainly keep it in the back of your mind. Thank you, and I look forward to working with everybody again. And feel free to call us like everybody else, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, great. So going into kind of the headlining act tonight, we have DOT and DCP here to present a text amendment, and we have a public hearing related to that presentation. So tonight we have Hae Kyung and John O'Neill. Hae Kyung, I believe, will start presenting. She's from the Department of City Planning, and John O'Neill from DOT. Hae Kyung, you're here. Yes, there you are. So welcome to you, and I'll just give everyone kind of an orientation of how we will do this. So Hae Kyung and John will do the presentation, then we'll stop the share, and we'll go through the board's questions. I have sent I've sent them some of the questions that have come up already from board members, and I want to be really targeted with the follow-up questions that we ask, so we can be as use our time the best that we can this evening. Then we will answer the board members' questions. We have one member of the public who has a comment to make in the public hearing, and then we will move forward after that. So with that, Hae Kyung, it's all yours.
Thank you. I think John O'Neill from DOT will start the presentation, but hi, my name is Hae Kyung Yang from City Planning. I'm joined by John O'Neill from DOT, and we'll be presenting to you on the permanent open restaurants text amendment. John will lead off the presentation, and I will insert myself midway.
Hi, everybody. My name is John O'Neill. I'm a borough planner in the DOT's Queensborough Commissioner's Office. I think a number of you may know me just from various on-sites. I've been your borough planner for the past 3 years or so. So tonight we'll be going through a presentation specific to the sidewalk cafes and the rules around that. Next slide, please. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'll be taking us through where things stand from a more programmatic standpoint with the permanent open restaurants, which will continue to give restaurants the option of sidewalk and roadway seating for outdoor dining. The program will look to better balance the many needs of the street and the sidewalk, keeping both restaurants and other users in mind. And we're going to take what has and hasn't worked in the past, both pre-COVID and now during this COVID emergency, into consideration when developing these future guidelines. So I want to make it clear that while this presentation will cover both sidewalk and roadway dining, DOT and city planning are asking the board tonight for your opinion on the specific sidewalk cafe text amendment. I know many of you probably have comments about the roadbed setups. I think we're going to come back at a later date to talk about those. That's not what we're talking about tonight. So just a quick clarification. Next slide, please. So as many of you know, the city had street and sidewalk cafes before COVID, but significantly fewer of them. The majority of those programs were administered by the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. DOT did one small pilot of public roadway seating called Street Seats. We only had one of those in Queens, and it was in Long Island City. The other 24 were primarily in Manhattan and Brooklyn. But there were only 25 in total under DOT. So this is a pretty significant expansion in the amount of locations that DOT needs to monitor. And so we're scaling up accordingly. And it's our understanding that that relatively low participation was in large part due to cost and process, which is something we wanted to unload during this time of the COVID emergency. Next slide. So during COVID, New York City suspended existing rules through an emergency executive order, and DOT was directed to create the Open Restaurants Program, which allowed restaurants to conduct their business in the public right of way. Since the launch about a year ago, over 11,000 restaurants have participated, which has saved an estimated 100,000 jobs. By many accounts, this program has been a lifesaver, not just for the restaurant industry, but also for the city that has seen outdoor dining and the incredible vitality that it can bring to the sidewalks and streets of the city as a beacon of hope and innovation during this, very challenging time. Next slide. So it's important to acknowledge that there have been many successes and challenges over the past year. As a borough planner, now a significant percentage of my work is related to working with restaurants and to making sure that the restaurants and the boards that I cover are in compliance with the rules that DOT has laid out. We've learned both positive and negative lessons during that time, and those lessons have proven critical to informing how we proceed with a permanent program, which is why you saw in the first year we had an initial set of rules, and then with winter coming around, we altered those rules a bit and required restaurants to essentially bolster and build out their setups. So successes on the positive side, we think the robust use of the emergency program was helped by three things. First, unlike the pre-emergency sidewalk cafe program, no geographies were off limits. Any restaurant with ground floor frontage and sidewalk and roadway space that met the criteria could participate in the program. Second, the program was free and easy to access, unlike the pre-COVID sidewalk cafe program, which routinely required months of multiple reviews by multiple agencies. And third, the element of roadway dining gave restaurants brand new options, particularly those that might not have had enough room to accommodate a sidewalk cafe. That said, there were many challenges, and so it's important to note those as well. First, this was very quickly rolled out. It was rolled out from scratch and under emergency circumstances. There's been a great deal of confusion that was associated with that. So a lot of my job has been explaining the rules to restaurant owners, making sure that they don't get cease and desist letters, and trying to make sure that they're both safe but functional setups. So as we learned more about the operating program, and the program extended into winter, some of that guidance, as I had mentioned earlier, needed to change in order to keep people safe from things like snow plows and garbage trucks. Second, throughout the program, DOT learned much more about the challenges specific to roadway seating and its interaction with the roadway. For instance, we've heard from other agencies such as FDNY and MTA that there were issues with turning radius and safety signs being blocked. Safety is the utmost importance, obviously, and it will continue to remain so. So we're going to continue to work with other agencies on that one. Internally, DOT's had some challenges with things like resurfacing, but we're working it out and working on our notification process with the restaurants. And overall, we had another successful paving season, even if some restaurant owners were a little bit unhappy with us in the short term. Third, enforcement has been complicated on multiple fronts. So on one hand, you have restaurants that we're dealing with a lot and felt like we've been too aggressive about our inspections. We've been too hard on them, or too many overlapping inspectors from different agencies were coming and finding them or issuing correction notices. Whereas on the other hand, we hear those concerns from the community about these structures look infirm and these structures are taking up public space, and there's under enforcement. And I flagged an issue with DOT, and it took them a long time to compel the restaurant owner to make a change. We hear those things, and we're trying to be balanced as we continue to progress with this planning process. Next slide. So background, just, all that said, the program overall has seen tremendous participation. And in April, the City Council overwhelmingly voted in favor of the bill to make it permanent. I believe the vote was 48 in favor, 2 against, with 1 abstention. But that's going to require changing a number of different laws that control outdoor dining in non-emergency situations, because ideally we will exit this period. Next slide, please. So I'll speak a little bit about a permanent program and what we're proposing for that program. And then later on, we'll go back to the topic of the legal changes that'll be needed in order to implement it. So to start, we anticipate that as in the emergency, DOT will administer a permanent option for both sidewalk seating and roadway seating with similar rules to current sidewalk cafes, but available citywide. So we want to be sensitive to the traveling public, minding sidewalk clear paths and other rules around sound and hours of operation. But we also want to be accommodating of these small businesses that are the lifeblood of the city. Next slide, please. So when final, specific design guidelines will be very clear and will revolve around these principles that balance the use of sidewalk space by a restaurant, but maximize the experience of openness and activation to the general public. So for most of the city, we're proposing 8-foot clear paths, or about half of the sidewalk width, generally whichever is greater. In some areas with higher foot traffic, the city is proposing 12-foot or half of the sidewalk width. And for other special cases where it may make sense despite a narrow sidewalk, we're looking at a waiver to go down to 6-foot width, which would be co-reviewed by the mayor's office of people with disabilities, because obviously maintaining a clear path that is accessible to those who have disabilities, we want to really make forefront their safety and their accessibility, and emphasize this is still a sidewalk above all else. Next slide. So I'll speak a little bit about the roadway cafe seating. This is something I'm planning for us to come back to you all at a future date to discuss further. But we think the introduction of the roadway option is a tremendous new opportunity for restaurants, especially those who have narrow sidewalks. The city is working on how this will be set up permanently, but we have setups in parking lanes except in prohibited zones like bus stops, utility covers, which is a challenge, no standing areas, crosswalks, etc., that we're focusing on making compliant. And then in the future, any roadway setups will have to look a lot more like the one that you're looking at in the slide. So we're going to try and create some uniformity and formality to the program. and not the fully enclosed structures that we've seen a lot of. And I'll explain why in the next slide. So next slide, please. So seasonality, I think this is a big one for a lot of people in the communities that we serve. So the city is proposing that the new program will not operate during the colder months, but there will be some opportunities for a hardship waiver that would allow restaurants to keep their setups in place. But for now, all restaurants will be able to keep operating uninterrupted through this upcoming winter season. But after that, we're going to transition away from winter outdoor dining setups in the roadbed. Next slide. So in looking at moving the legal authority to run the program to DOT and in creating new processes for the roadway setups, the city is looking to streamline the review process as much as possible while leaving in place the essential roles of agency and public review. And so I know I've worked with Frank and Christine and Councilmember Kozowitz's office pretty extensively about, who's responsible for this enforcement technique? Sometimes it's DEP, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's DOT, and it can be a little frustrating and somewhat Kafkaesque. So everything comes to me. Everything will come to DOT, and DOT will be the enforcing agency, except in emergency situations, in which case we defer to NYPD. Next slide. So we'll go through the three main actions that are needed to facilitate this future program. First, the focus for today is the removal of locational prohibitions through zoning. It's a key to unlocking the full citywide universe of applicability and consolidating control and accountability for the program under a single agency, which would be DOT. We are working with the City Council, who, as I mentioned, strongly supports this program to enact appropriate legislation that will update the laws governing the sidewalk cafes and then create a new set of laws that govern the roadway cafes. So we are at the beginning of a very long process. As I understand it, it's called the CAPA process. And when there are new laws and new rules made, we again come forward for meetings like these where we gather public input about the way that people would like to see these rules and these programs structured. Next slide, please. So following zoning and legal changes, we anticipate rulemaking that formalizes many of the program design and application details, and then a formal opening up of the application window for the new program. In this slide, you'll see a little, just kind of a brief schedule of where we're at in the process. Though we are expecting a process of developing the future program, current emergency program is expected to be in effect is for the next year and a half or so. The expectation is that restaurants will have ample time to transition into a new process if they so choose, with minimal operational disruption. So changing zoning is the first critical step to making this program permanent. But as you can see on the timeline, there are multiple steps to developing the full program. And at each stage, obviously, we seek community input. So for any individuals here tonight who feel like this is rushed or they're a little concerned about the pace of this, we are at the beginning of a long journey together to formulate the rules of this program. And next slide, please. So COVID-19 has really shaped the way that New Yorkers think about the ways that our streets can be used, which has been one of the few good things I would say about the pandemic. We welcome feedback and encourage all of you to visit our website and submit your comments to us as we develop all of these elements. You're also welcome to send those comments to Frank and Christine, and they'll send them over to me and we'll compile them as we, make determinations based on what you tell us tonight. So once again, the roadway portion of this presentation is still preliminary, and our primary purpose in presenting to the board tonight is either to gather feedback on DCP's proposed text amendment changes, and that's really specifically related to the sidewalk cafes. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back to my colleague at City Planning to talk about those changes.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. So I'll be presenting on the zoning text amendment action, which, as John discussed, is one element of facilitating a permanent open restaurants program, and the ULURP action you'll be voting on. The proposed text amendment would remove the entirety of Chapter 1, Article 4 of the zoning resolution and related text in special districts and other areas that relate to sidewalk cafes to fully remove zoning from dictating locations of cafes. This will allow any restaurants to apply to DOT for a sidewalk cafe if they can meet the required clear path and siting criteria. Sidewalk cafes have long been a part of New York City's streetscape, and with them, the laws governing cafes have evolved over the years. Up until COVID-19, zoning worked as the gatekeeper of where cafes could exist. Under the zoning rules, which are currently suspended, zoning dictates 3 different types of cafes and where in the city they can be located. Most commonly, unenclosed cafes, which allows for readily removable tables, chairs, and fencing with no allowable overhead coverage other than umbrellas or retractable roofs. A small sidewalk cafe is an unclosed sidewalk cafe containing no more than a single row of tables and chairs adjacent to the street line and then no further than 4.5 feet from the building, or an enclosed cafe, which is defined as extensions of the building into the sidewalk using light building material. Zoning held the geographic restrictions of where these cafe types were allowed. The public could view where cafes were allowed on DZP's zoning and land use map application at Zola. If you're on Zola, you could see that yellow shows allowance of only small cafe types. Purple are areas where only unenclosed and small cafes were allowed, and green is where all cafe types are allowed. I've highlighted CB6 in dark orange for context. From this, you can see a lot of areas where cafes weren't allowed at all, even if the sidewalks were wide and conditions otherwise would have allowed it. Red are areas that specifically are prohibited from having cafes, and blue show all the residential areas of the city. As you know, as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, New York State economy went on pause in March 2020. This action resulted in a ban on indoor dining that impacted the industry harshly. We saw employment in the restaurant industry drop 64% from January to March first quarter to March to May on the second quarter of 2020. The majority of these losses in Manhattan. Sadly, the city also lost some longtime institutions in the past year, as continued restrictions and aversions on indoor dining made it very difficult for dining establishments to operate. In order to provide support, during the emergency program, 2,500 restaurants were permitted in areas that would have been prohibited or limited under existing zoning, but the proposed text amendment will allow them. Looking at the map on the right, in red are restaurants in specific areas that were prohibited by zoning. These include commercial mid-block, certain special districts under elevated rail lines, and other named congested areas. Blue are all the grandfather restaurants in residential areas. Zoning doesn't allow restaurants in residential areas, but many of these uses predate zoning and so have remained. Estimate there are about 2,900 citywide and 1,000 participating in the open restaurants program. The yellow are cafes in zones that would have limited to small topology only. Under the pre-COVID sidewalk cafe process, our district had 12 cafes. Many of you know Restaurants Row had sidewalk cafes allowed even before the pandemic. So I'm showing you the restaurants that had these open sidewalk cafe allowances. Under the Emergency Open Restaurants Program, there are 113 cafes in our community board. 24 of them would have been prohibited under current zoning. You can see those again in red and blue. The text amendment would allow these cafes the opportunity to apply in non-emergency setting, but only if they meet the siting rules that DOT lays out. The picture to the left, as everyone knows, is Martha's Bakery. Pre-COVID, they would not have been able to set up on the roadway like they were doing today. Other cleanup actions in the text amendment include removing definitions and cross-referencing to cafes, removing text that preclude operable windows that service outdoor restaurants, ensuring that no enclosure provisions require a restaurant to be fully indoors as a condition of a zoning district, and clarifying sidewalk widening text to ensure it does not conflict with operations of the open restaurants program. So to summarize, we're at the start of a multi-pronged legislative process. Because this is a citywide text, it's being referred to 59 community boards and 5 borough presidents for 90 days, and we expect the text to come back to the CPC this November. We anticipate City Council actions to be underway during the same period, continuing the process of updating the Sidewalk Cafe program and fully fleshing out the Roadway Cafe Authority through a DOT rulemaking process. Also underway is a DOT design review process that city planning will be involved with. We do not expect full program launch until late 2022 or early 2023 at the earliest, which gives restaurants time to transition to the permanent program should they choose to do so. I want to reiterate the diagram that John showed earlier, that we're at the circled red stage, step 1. Although the open restaurant program itself is still in draft form, the ULURP action here that needs your recommendation is a citywide text amendment that would remove the language in the zoning resolution that speaks to sidewalk cafes and its regulations. All of those regulations in that chapter will be regulated and enforced in the realm of DOT.
Thank you. Okay. So I still see maybe, okay, is it just that I'm not on grid? Okay, there everyone is. So thank you so much. I'm sure that there are questions from the board, and I appreciate that John and Hae-Kyung added in the answers to the questions that we sent in or addressed them in their presentation. So that was really helpful. So please use the raise hand function for any comments or questions. And just to let the board know, as per our newly adopted bylaws as of June 2021, the sirens are, I don't know if everyone here, it's been very siren-y past few minutes, but we will not be voting tonight. As per our bylaws, we're going to separate the public hearing from the board vote so we can really process what the public and our board members are commenting on. So what we're going to be doing, since a lot of these text amendments have been on a very short schedule, and being that we were off, and anyway, the deadline is coming up. What we're going to do is vote. If you're a member of the public and you didn't sign up in advance, you're watching this and you'd like to send in a public comment, please do so by tomorrow at 3 p.m. Then we're going to have I'm going to get everything out to the board members by end of day tomorrow. And then we're going to ask that board members vote by email, and you'll get this all in an email tomorrow by Monday at 3 p.m. so that we can get our vote into DCP by end of day on the 27th. So thank you all for going along with this slightly unconventional but still effective way that we're doing things. So that said, I'm kind of just stalling because I don't see anyone raising their hand, and that's fine. We don't need to ask any questions, but it's uncharacteristic for this board to not have questions. So I see one, Pat Morgan. Great. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi there. One of my biggest concerns are the lack of sidewalk space being respected by a number of the businesses, and being disabled and being on a walker, I've had to have the occasion of having somebody be next to me in order to assist me by walking. And in many spots within this community, and I'm not going to name them, the sidewalks are being overrun by the businesses. Now, will that be, who will be issuing the summonses for that? And my next question is, we have a number of businesses that have chosen to, at the present, abandoned their, in, their, their streets, business, their street, dining setups. There are a few of them in the neighborhood. What's going to happen with that over the next few months? And lastly, in case of a storm or emergency, what's going to be happening with those streetwise setups, and what's going to happen in terms of, we haven't, we have 3 blizzards from January to March, and that snow ain't going anywhere. Thank you very much.
Hi, Pat. This is John at DOT. So the answer to the first question, I'm sorry, I don't remember the question, but I did write down the answer as you were saying them. So the answer to the first one is that DOT is responsible. Oh yeah, it was about keeping the sidewalks clear, essentially maintaining a clear path for individuals to pass by, and that there are restaurants who are taking up too much space. DOT is responsible for that. Anything citing issues, that's us. Typically we have, so this is a little bit of the growing pain. DOT has a unit called Highway Inspection Quality Assurance Unit. They typically deal with things like cave-ins, utility problems, inspections with random construction things that you'll see on the street, making sure that developers are adhering to the rules of their construction permits. A lot of that work petered off during the pandemic. I just didn't get the same volume of complaints because most people just weren't traveling as much. We didn't see the same vehicle volumes. We repurposed a lot of those inspectors we train them in the rules of the program, and we assign them to being inspectors to make sure that these restaurants were in compliance. So it's their job. That unit is responsible for the restaurant inspections. They're supposed to go out there. Typically, the record is about every 2 to 3 months. Unless there is a specific complaint entered into DOT's contact us form or 311, in which case we will, as requested, send an inspector to a location. If a notice of violation is issued to the restaurant, they have 24 hours to correct. Realistically, it takes about a week. And then there's an app where they can submit the photos and will denote a correction has been made. It's not perfect, it has issues. If there are still locations that you're seeing that problem or you're having trouble walking around, send them to Frank. Frank will send them to me, and we will get an inspector out there in the next week. The second question, I now forget, but I do have the answer that yes, that is an issue. I'm trying to think what that one was about, though. I'm sorry. And then
It was about the abandoned outside.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. So same thing. This is a little bit of a challenge, right? When somebody folds up a business, typically the line goes dead. Sometimes it's challenging to find an accountable party. So DOT's number one desire when that happens is that when the restaurant closes, that they dismantle their setup. If they have a derelict setup, after a number of, if you ignore a cease and desist order, as I understand it, you're liable up to $1,000 fine. And then worse yet is if DOT has in a couple of cases torn down outdoor dining setups that were just like egregiously bad, or just something that was really hazardous. We have gone out and we've dismantled them after providing sufficient notice. It's a little challenging because it's technically private property, and there's a legality that comes to it about destroying somebody else's property.
Also businesses that have the setups in the street, not on the sidewalk, but in the street. And they are not doing anything with them at this time except, letting paper get stuck in them.
I was muted for a minute, but I just want to clarify that we're just talking about the sidewalks right now and not the street. And I see that we have gotten a number of other hands raised. So I want to, if you have more answers, but we won't have follow-up questions if
All
that's
right.
okay with you, Pat. Yep.
Thanks, Alexa. Last answer is that I think that the third question will be answered by the seasonality of the program. And when there is a weather event, as has been the case, we issue it's like a DOT Office of Emergency Management notification to either shut down the open streets or shut down your open restaurant setups starting at X hour when we believe the weather event will happen.
Great. Thanks for the questions, Pat and John. So I have on my queue, John, and then Irina, and then Mark. And please, just one question per person, please. Thank you. Go ahead, John. You're up. Unmuted you, John.
No, I'm unmuted. First, I'd like to thank you for a very comprehensive and helpful presentation. Just one, I know that, clearly the way in which the things are set up is one can only set up, at least on the sidewalk, in front of the restaurant itself and not go over into adjacent areas, which obviously makes a lot of sense. However, we do have a lot of restaurants that, really have relatively narrow streets frontage. But could benefit from the street setup. I know that, for example, on Restaurant Row, there are at least one restaurant, maybe a couple of them, that do have street setups that are not in front of the restaurant, but really don't block or do any damage. And I'm just wondering if any kind of consideration could be given, perhaps some sort of preferential or at least some sort of specific treatment for restaurants that really have very little street frontage, but could benefit from being on and within the street, if they meet the other requirements, and if the regulations would work in their favor in that way.
So in that instance, so I thank you for that comment. Most restaurants do qualify to use the street frontage, the roadbed in front of their business. It needs to, similar to kind of the issue that you're describing, it has to be the width of the restaurant. But assuming that they don't have a bus stop, fire hydrant, no standing for turning radius purposes, they have the right to build as far as 8 feet out into the roadbed, which is the width of the standard parking lane for their outdoor dining setup. There are some unique situations where we've had small businesses, we really want to help them. If the building, so if there are adjacent buildings that are owned by the same owner and the business owner can have an agreement with the landlord and the adjacent business and they sign that, we will allow people to say, extend the frontage of their outdoor dining setups beyond the width of their businesses. It's not common. It does have, that does exist in some situations where we've just had people who have a bus stop in front of their business. They can't use the sidewalk or the roadway, but they have the same landlord and they're friends with the, say, accounting business next door that doesn't use the parking. So we will allow them to extend the setup. Under the future rules, I think it would look, well, I really can't speculate about it just yet because that's the whole point of coming back in the future is to talk about what the programmatic basis of the program will look like.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John and John squared on that one. Irina, you're up.
Yeah, my concern was more along Pat's. It's not a sidewalk, it's more of a the streets where I think restaurants are now, you kind of have a narrow sidewalk to walk between the restaurant and then you have little space and then the streets are taken over, causing congestion now, and like especially on the restaurant row and no parking. So is anything being done around that or is that just the norm now?
Well, I guess I'm trying to think about what the nature of the complaint is. That is it the sidewalk access or is it the concern about?
It's the street.
Oh,
right. Like as I drive between like Austin and Queens Boulevard, right, the whole restaurant row, there is constant congestion. Restaurants are taking over the streets, so it's become very narrow. There's lack of parking because it's just bleeding into the streets. And I was wondering, is that sort of fine or is that just a temporary, for the fall or summer and then that's going away? And then to Pat's point, once we get snowstorms, how is that going to affect? Because now it's going to get even worse.
Well, the emergency program, that's going to be what you see out there now, that will be allowed to continue into next year. What we're saying about the rulemaking process, and this is specific for the roadbed part, right? So tonight's topic, different. I just don't want to cloud those two topics, but I'm always happy to talk about this. In the future, we talked about seasonality change, right? So in terms of the snow removal, snow challenges, that I don't foresee that being an issue with the future program design that we're talking about, because you would remove the setups in the winter under the new guidelines. Regarding the width, I mean, let's all just be honest with each other here. Austin has always had congestion issues. It is a very crowded two-way retail street. Parking has always been a challenge. And the people who were typically speaking to me before the pandemic about wanting more parking were the restaurant owners who now have roadbed setups in front of their businesses, taking up what were parking spaces. So I am just trying to be realistic about it. If they are primarily concerned about parking spaces, the restaurants do have the right to remove the roadway setups and restore the parking for their customers and bring everybody indoors. Nobody is compelled to enroll and, participate in the program if they so desire not to, now that indoor dining capacity is back to 100%. What we have seen though, I don't want to name, just there have been certain restaurant owners who have seen an expansion of the square footage where they could have tables, and it has been a saving grace for them to have that ability.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Irina. And Mark, you'll be our last question tonight. Mark, you're muted. Mark, you're muted. I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So what would be, thanks, John, and thank you for the presentation. What's going to be the protocol regarding COVID rule enforcement? Because I've noticed even during the height of COVID and we had these outdoor dining, I had questions whether or not there were some violations. So what would be the protocol, or what do we as a citizen of the community do? Like, who do we call in terms of enforcement?
Well, when we were in the midst of the pandemic and there were more strident rules regarding social distancing, I usually talk to your liaison at Department of Health. He was very, very busy. I feel for him, but we would usually get those concerns, and then we would have the rep who's at Department of Health and Mental Health send an inspector out there to see whether or not the business was in compliance. So that was really the enforcement agency on that. DOT, and this is kind of the frustration that we've all talked about, earlier tonight, is that it was just, there's an alphabet soup of different city agencies and nobody knew who went to what. I think under the new rules, DOT would singularly be the enforcing agency, but ideally, COVID restrictions would not be back in place and DOT wouldn't be acting like a health inspector. But for the previous times, it was Department of Health who would, issue orders to restaurants about being in compliance. I don't know that there's existing rules right now about capacity requirements within restaurants. I think 100% is allowed, and I think Department of Health is the party that's responsible for checking the QR codes if you're going to indoor dine or go to a bar or whatever.
Okay, thanks, Mark. We have two more questions. I'll ask David and Heather to keep it super brief, and so we can move on to the rest. So David, go ahead.
What I heard is that this would be a permanent rule change or just for COVID?
So what we're doing tonight is proposing just a text amendment change to the zoning rules, which would streamline the process of sidewalk cafe applications. That's the question at hand tonight. What I'm talking about is just what is drifted into kind of standard community questions about the outdoor dining setups.
Great, thanks, John.
Those outdoor setups will be for permanent changes for the outdoor street seating, or just, again, temporary for COVID?
Well, it would be a permanent rule change, but it's only the beginning of changing the rule. It's like literally a question of yes or no, should we change the rule? And then how is that rule going to look if we do change it? That's the later conversation. So we're in the very beginning of it.
And it's basically like how I'm kind of like conceptualizing it is there was all this red tape. Obviously, there was this emergency, and we were like, let's put seating wherever we can. And we were like, wow, we didn't have to have all that red tape. Let's change it so that it makes it easier for restaurants to be able to access this moving forward. Pandemic or not, it's a good option. And right now we're addressing sidewalks, and moving forward, we will look at roadways. Is that accurate? Heather, you're up for our final comment. Go ahead.
Thanks. Under this new program, my understanding is that there will be an application fee to apply to, once this kicks off, to apply to then continue to be a sidewalk cafe. My question is, do we have a ballpark as to what that fee will be? If you get rejected, do you get that money back? And do we have any kind of projection as to the percentage of sidewalk cafes that exist today that will not meet the requirements and will no longer be able to exist? Because I am concerned, as I was listening to the presentation to the borough, from the borough president's office, was that it just seems like between the application fee that's going to come up on top of cafes that may either have to retrofit or completely redesign, we are talking about cha-ching for these businesses that we're sort of hoping can use these outdoor cafes to sort of recoup lost money during COVID. So just wondering if you could help address a little bit of that from the small business perspective.
Sure. So we certainly don't view this as, say, a revenue raising exercise. And we are very concerned about equity because we didn't show the map. But if you looked at where outdoor dining and sidewalk setups were pre-pandemic, they were really concentrated in high income neighborhoods in the city. They were very rarely in a lot of the neighborhoods that, you know, I cover in Queens, and a lot of the outer borough neighborhoods were just, it was a non-concept, non-participation. It didn't occur. So I think, you know, obviously we're planners and we're concerned about the communities we represent, and equity is a big part of this. So there is not a fee that has been set yet. I believe that the plan is for it to be a flat fee, and a fee that will not preclude any. The idea is not to drive people away from the program. We like the program. We want the program to work. But there are certain challenges associated with it. So I know I'm being subjective. As I have more details, I would get those to you, but it would not be a fee that pushes people away from doing it. I don't want to say number, but I don't think it would be something prohibitive for your standard small business owner. And then the potential, I'm sorry, you had a couple of points, and
I think the question was, if someone does apply and they actually get rejected, will they have their application fee refunded to them? And then just the thought was, like, do we have a projection as to the percentage of sidewalk cafes that could be at risk at not being accepted into the new program?
It's kind of difficult for me to envision that things will change significantly from the existing siting requirements that we have now. So we're talking about maybe different material uses and different configurations, but typically the sidewalk elements are not actual built structures. So it might be something as small as saying you can have one row of tables and chairs rather than 2 rows of tables and chairs. And we kind of talked about in the presentation, a lot of people are mad with me because we're a little too gentle about this. A lot of people are mad at me because we're not tough enough about it. So generally, I would say that we've been pretty deferential to small businesses in the program, and we're going to continue to have that philosophy as we work on this.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, John. We're gonna call it there, but I just want to remind everyone that we did the last text amendment. One of the last ones was like slashing the fees associated with BSA applications for gyms and health, so like, let's not make it so high that in 20 years we're like re-litigating and slashing it should be, I think that's what you said, John, that it was going to be reasonable and flat, and so that everyone can apply and not create a hardship. So that's really very important. So thank you so much, Hae Kyung and John. Really great presentation. If board members do have any follow-up questions, get in contact with us. I know that Hae Kyung and John will hopefully, will you, I'll ask and not assume, will you make yourselves available to answer any questions? Great, thank you. And fabulous. So with that, actually, why don't you stick around, because I'm going to now have the public read a public statement in the public hearing section. So we got one in advance, and it is from Barry Glogger. I'm reading it off of my email on my phone. Restaurant business was severely impacted by COVID-19 restrictions, and thus outdoor curbside dining was appropriately implemented last year. However, now that all occupancy restrictions have been removed and 100% capacity is permitted for properly vaccinated patrons, it is time to eliminate outdoor curbside dining because it hurts retail small business, impedes access for the disabled, and structures have become eyesores. Outdoor curbside dining usurps public property for private profits. Outdoor curbside dining occupies valuable parking space, which causes shoppers to go elsewhere, hurting local retail business. Outdoor curbside dining occupies valuable parking space, impacting the disabled. Outdoor curbside dining lessens New York City parking revenue. For all the above reasons, I request that CB6 revoke all outdoor curbside dining permits and order structures to be removed. So that will be inserted into the public record, into the minutes for this evening, and I'll send it to the board tomorrow. And with that, I think we'll wrap up this portion of the agenda. Thank you so much again to Hae Kyung and John, and we look forward to the next time, because there's always a next time. And great, so moving on, just to give you the next portion of the program. So we're going to do a few committee reports. We'll do education, library and youth, consumer affairs, aging, social services. Then we have an opportunity to hear briefly from board members and elected official representatives. So first, I believe Heather's co-chair Heather Demetriadis Beers is going to be presenting for education, library and youth committee.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hope this works. Can you all see the presentation?
I'm not seeing anything, Heather.
Okay, give it just 2 seconds. Do you see it now?
I see it on mine.
No.
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 Well, WebEx is driving me crazy then. Let me see what the problem is. Okay, let me try it again. There, we'll do entire screen. We'll see what happens here, folks. Thank you for joining me on this crazy ride called WebEx.
Something's coming through.
Well, look,
Okay, do you see it now?
yes.
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 Está bien. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put it bigger so it's easier to see. Good evening. This is a quick report from the Education Needs and Libraries. I just wanted to walk you guys through. We had a wonderful meeting last week where we talked about the Rego Park Library and the upcoming art installation that will become a part of the Rego Park Library. Public art has been a part of new projects since 1982. It's Local Law 65, where the percent for law basically was passed and states that 1% of capital funds appropriated for newly constructed or reconstructed buildings must be allocated for works of art. So in the case of the Rego Park Library, I'm showing you the 63rd Drive. I'm sorry, the Austin Street side, because that's actually going to be the entrance. If we remember from the presentation before, the entrance is moving from 63rd Drive to the Austin Street side. And that is going to be the side where you'll be able to see the artwork installation from both inside the library and outside. This is the internal wall where the art installation will be displayed. It is going to be at basically what we call the interior entry. It is 1,500 square feet, and it will be on all 3 walls, as we see here. And this is a depiction of what it will look like. The artist is Kitrin. This is being managed by the New York City Cultural Affairs Group, and it basically depicts 3 flowers, flax mulberry and papyrus, which are flowers that can be grown here in Queens that are used in paper making, thus in the use of making books. You'll be able to see this both from outside the library and inside the library. You'll see it's going to be very hard to miss. It's rather lovely. As we move on, this is sort of what it will look like. You can see to the right the types of materials that will be used. It will be very easy to maintain and keep clean. And it will, if you sort of look at it, it sort of has this very 3D effect as it comes off of the walls. It was presented to our committee last week, a couple weeks ago. Last week, yes, because it's been a long week since school started. And our committee approved it and wrote them a letter. And so this will become a part of our library. One of the parts of the discussion that came up was sort of what it looks like. And, you know, a lot of discussions came up that it sort of reminds us of a lot of embroidery, which a lot of us in our traditions have seen things that are important to our traditions that are embroidered, whether it be, you know, whether it be an embroidery to a cup of a shirt or embroidery to a challah cover for Shabbos, or whether it be, you know, the embroidery of a head covering. So in a sense, I think it really does sort of match the community as well. So that is the presentation for Education, Youth, and Libraries for this month. Any questions?
Thanks,
And I
Heather.
will stop sharing.
Great. Thank you. And your next meeting is coming up. When is your schedule? Your meeting regularly? You can share with us.
I have to check, actually. Give me 2 seconds.
No worries.
I should actually look on the community board's calendar.
That's okay. Well, I'll remind everyone that the community board calendar exists, and so I'll put that in the email.
We're scheduled to meet, I think, the first Thursday of October, whatever that date is.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Co-chair Bruce Grosberg. Okay, moving on. We are going to Consumer Affairs, Economic Development, Small Business Committee report. I believe that Co-chair Elizabeth is going to be
presenting.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are, right?
Yeah.
My layout is all weird now. There you
Yeah.
are. Okay, great.
Yeah,
We have a
I'm
very
right
big
here.
list today, so everyone just hang around. I think, Elizabeth, what do you think about doing first the renewal?
Well, I had something in mind. We have quite a bit of renewals, and the restaurants are very familiar and have been in the Forest Hills and Regal Park community for quite some time. So that's easier to do. So I'd like to do the renewals first and then get into the new applications, a little bit more meat to that, if that's okay with you,
Yeah,
Madam
that
Chair.
makes total sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Okay. So we have 14 renewal applications. These restaurants, as I just said, have been in Regal Park and Forest Hills for quite some time. We're all familiar with them. The committee voted more than a quorum, more than 60, 90% voted. We have a couple of abstentions, but as to the renewals, they are Sushi Koi Inc., located at 11637 Queens Boulevard here in Forest Hills. We have Stick Kosher Restaurant, 101-15 Queens Boulevard here in Forest Hills. We have Beer Burger, 7149 Austin Street here in Forest Hills. Marani Restaurant, 9726 63rd Road in Regal Park. Nick's Bistro, 10420 Metropolitan Avenue here in Forest Hills. Dee's Brick Oven Pizza, 10723 Metropolitan Avenue here in Forest Hills. Rove, 7225 Austin Street in Forest Hills. Tuscan Hills, 11060 Queens Boulevard in Forest Hills. Joe Japanese Buffet Restaurant, 11327 Queens Boulevard here in Forest Hills. Agora Taverna, 7009 Austin Street here in Forest Hills. Matisse Latin Cuisine Corp, 11072 Queens Boulevard here in Forest Hills. L'Amour, 10211 Queens Boulevard here in Forest Hills. Bamboo Ya, 9711 Queens Boulevard in Rego Park. And Gloria Pizza, 10822 Queens Boulevard, Forest Hills, here in Forest Hills. These are the 14 renewal liquor license applications. We have had no negative reports. We check in with the 112th precinct. They have received no negative reports. And as our district manager would say, they've been very good neighbors. Again, most, if not all of our members of the committee voted yes for the renewal, a couple of abstentions. We have one for Beer Burger, one for Rove, one for Bamboo Ya, and Gloria Pizza. I'm going to move now to the new liquor license applications. We have a total of 6. I had the opportunity to go out. You know, most of them are closed, but you know, you see where they are, you see what was there before, you talk to neighbors, they talk about the restaurant and how they feel about it coming in. And I always find that it's helpful, especially for me to get a sense of. So as to the first new application, it's Cho Scene Garden at 6443 108th Street here in Forest Hills. If you go there now, it's going to have the same title. The only thing that has changed, it's not really a new application. The only thing that has changed is the ownership. So it's currently closed. It's going to keep the same title, the same, when you go to the restaurant, the name is going to be the same. The only thing that has changed is the ownership. And it's currently closed, but it will be opening soon. And all of the members voted yes on this application. The second new application is Mas Tortilla at 11327B Queens Boulevard. It's Forest Hills, but I see that it's closer to Kew Gardens. And if anybody remembers, it's on the opposite side of the street of PC Richards that's on Queens Boulevard. And what used to be there was the Tasty Food 2. It's called Tasty Food 2 because the original Tasty Food is in Astoria. So it used to be Tasty Food 2, and now it's going to be Mas Tortilla. They're still under construction. I remember Tasty Food 2 pretty well because I work in Kew Gardens. And it's a small location. It's not going to be a lot of seating space, but it was closed since 2019. They submitted Mas Tortilla submitted their license application July of this year. So it used to be Tasty Food 2. It's now going to be Mas Tortilla, and it's a Mexican cuisine. So I can't wait because I love Mexican food. Okay. The third new application is Prime 107 Inc. at 10702 Queens Boulevard. Now, we all know that there's a new condominium building on Queens Boulevard. We've watched it for the last year, 2 years under construction. Well, it's pretty much finished, and it's going to be a hybrid. What do I mean by hybrid? It's going to be commercial and residential. The condominiums are up for sale now. This 107 Prime restaurant will be a tenant of, the name of it is Boulevard Condominiums. If you will recall, and I've lived in this neighborhood for 25 years now, on that strip there used to be Liz's Cleaners, the Party Place store, the shoe repair shop, maybe a restaurant, that area there, which is directly, they have, you know, McDonald Park is directly right across from the building. So, and some of the condominiums have terraces, some don't. The ones that have the terraces that overlook McDonald Park is not a bad view, but that's where Prime 107 will be. It is not open yet for business. I suspect that maybe late this year, first quarter next year, it will be open, but that's where it will be. That's the location. And the building, the condominiums are up for sale. They have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom condominiums, and I suspect they're going to be renting them as well. So that's the Prime 107 Inc. That's where it's going to be. The fourth one is Boulevard 93. And by the way, just to backtrack, all of the members voted yes on the application for for Prime 107. The fourth one is Boulevard 93. And I'm going to start out to say not all of our members voted yes. We have 5 that voted no and 6 that voted yes. Now, I went to Boulevard 93. Boulevard 93 is not open. Boulevard 93 is a tenant of the Wyndham Hotel. You can access the Wyndham Hotel and Boulevard 93 from 93rd Street. So it's not on Queens Boulevard. It's directly behind the sports club and the Starbucks. We're on Queens Boulevard where the what is it? There's a it's like a community club there or something to that effect. It's just before you hit the Long Island Expressway going, I think it's westbound. But we all know it. There's a PC Richards, there's the sports store, there's the Starbucks, there's the Burger King. Well, this restaurant / bar and the hotel is directly behind that. You can access it through 93rd Street. So I went there. The general manager of the Wyndham Hotel happened to be there. The Wyndham Hotel is not open. Therefore, Boulevard 93 is not open because Boulevard 93 is a tenant of the Wyndham Hotel and has to utilize their fire system, which is down. Their phone lines are down. There's just completely nothing going on there. So I wasn't able to get as much information that I would like. But I do know that when it was open, and I think some of us will even recall it was in the papers, it was on the news, they were having rooftop parties in the deep of the pandemic. And the 112th precinct had to go there and check it out. So I understand there's a new owner from the general manager who has applied for this liquor license. The new owner, I think it was the new owner, I'm not sure. Nobody's sure. We voted on Boulevard 93 liquor application in May of 2020, but we don't know that it was approved by the state liquor license. So, but we do know they have a current application with the state liquor authorities. That's what I meant to say. So, a few complaints from neighbors. There was fireworks on the top of the roof, possibly some selling. And I don't know that any of this is true, but this is what the reports that were given to the precinct, and possibly selling liquor when they shouldn't have been selling liquor. Who knows? But 6 have said yes, let's approve, and 5 have said no. And I think, Madam Chair, the majority rules. Am I correct on that?
Well, we all vote. I mean, you present how you're.
Yeah, but within the committee, the majority rules. Because out of our,
I mean,
yeah,
it was 6-5, so that's what goes in. Yeah, that's what you
exactly.
reported.
Yeah.
But let's move on to 30 years and spring time. Yeah.
Right. The hotel will probably be opening late this year or early first quarter next year. Our 5th application is from Dirty Pierre's, which we all know, right here in Forest Hills at 13 Station Square. It's really not a new application. It's a class change and an alteration change. The class change is that this was a brother and sister restaurant owned by both. The brother just passed away, so now the sister owns the restaurant on her own, and it's going to be in her name and the brother's name will be taken off. In addition to that, they're applying, we just got a presentation on sidewalk cafes. They're applying for permanent applications of license to have a sidewalk cafe. So that's what's going on with Dirty Piers. It's not really a new liquor application. It's just change in class and alterations. Finally, we have the Spring Thai Fusion and Bar. That's currently closed and it's at 9640 Queens Boulevard in Rego Park. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this very busy block in Rego Park, where on this block you have Pizza Hut and you have Lotless and you have the Dollar Bazaar. And this new restaurant is replacing La Moja's Bakery and Cafe. Don't know if you guys are familiar with La Moja's Bakery and Cafe, but it's kind of like squeezed in between Lotless and the Dollar Bazaar that's on Queens Boulevard.
It's the old Ben's Best spot.
It's all Ben's.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All Ben's.
So yeah, so that's a little bit because Ben's is the famous a pastrami place. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
That used to be in Kew Gardens, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I'm telling my age. It used to be in Kew Gardens. I'm telling my age, so I remember that. Back in the 80s, it was right there. So yeah, thank you for that.
You're
So
welcome.
yeah, so and again, the committee members all voted yes for Spring Thai Fusion and Bar. And that's the completion of my report for this evening.
Amazing. Thank you, Elizabeth. So I just, it all seems quite standard, and thank you for the comprehensive report, except for, I just want to make sure that we heard that we always ask the precinct if there was feedback. They told us about this Boulevard 93, that they have, Elizabeth alluded to this, there were citations about possibly selling alcohol to minors and violating COVID during the height of the pandemic. So I just want, that's the feedback that we got from the, so John, you have a question about this? You're muted. But I think you do have a question, so I will.
Gotta learn to see it. Just one question. I believe in your presentation you said that that restaurant, the Boulevard 93, would be under a different management, a different ownership than had owned it before. I'm just wondering if it has, and did the committee meet with the new owner or raise questions about how they would manage their operation and not engage in the kind of questionable activities that you noted in your presentation?
Hi, John. Unfortunately, we have not met with the new owners. That was one of the reasons why I went out, with the hopes that I would be able to meet the new owner and talk to him a little bit. So, no, to answer to your question is no.
But I think, Christine, did something go out?
I just wanted to clarify, we did email the owner, just like we do with all the other, since COVID, we can't really we weren't inviting them to meetings. So we did send them emails. They declined to answer any of our emails. And this is a new owner from their original application in 2018, but this is the same owner that was cited in the violations during COVID. So it is a different owner from when they first opened back in 2018, but it's the same owner that was listed on the violations that the SLA and the NYPD gave us during COVID.
So in other words, when the violations or the complaints were made, the person who was the current owner was the owner at that time?
That's what we were told, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's been like, a little hard to get all the information.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going on what we were told and what I've read in the newspaper. So, but we have not met with them.
Yeah. So, okay. Martha, you clapped. Did you want to raise your hand? Did you have a question or did you mean to clap?
Yes, I do. Okay. I didn't mean to clap. I raised my hand. I'm just a little confused because I know that Lucian, the owner for Dirty Pierre's, passed away like 20 years ago. So I'm very confused why it's now listed as him just passing away and why this change never really happened.
Well, it doesn't mean that he just it could be that the liquor license is up. He was on the liquor license, so they're making that change to the liquor license because they're putting it in for a renewal or a class change now. That's my understanding.
But
Well,
I mean, shouldn't that been done a while ago?
I use the, well, I don't, maybe it should have. I used the word just, but I think that since she's changing everything, I mean, I guess she could have changed it 20 years. I don't know that he's been dead for 20 years. I don't have that information.
20 years. I think it was.
Well, I do, because he was a friend of mine, so I know the family.
Yeah, so I don't,
I'm just
why is she
a
doing
little
it now?
confused.
Why is she changing the name now? I don't know. I
Okay.
can't answer that question.
Okay, but
Okay, I just was a little confused, that's all.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, we're gonna go, I'm gonna do a roll call vote and we're back to the old yes, yes. If you have a no, just tell me the one that you're voting no on, one or many, in the, if you have your agenda in front of you, which I suggest everyone has, because then we have all the addresses, we could follow along or know them when Elizabeth is presenting. So with that, Michael Arcadi.
Yes to all.
Okay. Anicia.
Yes to all except View Boulevard 93. I walk my dog there every day and I don't like that place.
Okay. Kavish.
Yes to all.
Peter.
Yes to all.
Miriam. Miriam, you called in. You're gonna have to unmute yourself. It's *6. I'll come back to you. Howard.
All. Yes to all.
Heidi.
Yes to everything except the one that had the COVID violations.
Okay. Sheridan, did you join us?
I'm here. How's it going?
Welcome. Sheridan, how do you vote?
Yes to all except for the Boulevard 83.
Okay. Alex.
Yes to all.
Latrice. Latrice, you're here, I think, yeah? I'm going to ask you to unmute and I'll come back to you. John.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Alejandra.
Yes to all except for Boulevard 93.
Latrice, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. I vote yes.
Okay. Miriam, are you back?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
how do you vote?
Yes,
Yep.
yes
How do you
to everything. No to 93.
Got it. Thank you. Heather.
Yes to everything, but a no to
Tragona, me fui a comer algo, me las coñeten.
If you're off, just if you're not, I think we have some feedback. Sorry, Heather. Tell me again, please. Sorry, missed it.
yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Got it. Keith.
Thank you.
I vote yes to all except for Boulevard 93.
Ethan. He's no longer present. Gail is not here. Brendan.
Yes to all. Yes.
Bruce.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Oded.
To all except Boulevard 93.
Emmanuel. No longer here. Mark.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Ralph.
Yes to all, no to Boulevard 93.
Jonathan.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Kevin.
Yes to all, no to 93.
Jack. I don't think he ended up making it on. Renee.
Yes to all except for Boulevard 93.
Steve.
Same, yes to all except for Boulevard 93.
Pat.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Elizabeth.
Yes
Elizabeth
to
Newton.
all except for Boulevard 93.
Tanya.
Yes to all except for Boulevard 93.
Shari.
To all except Boulevard 93.
Gladys.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
David.
Yes to all, no to Boulevard 93.
Herb.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Teresa.
Yes to all, no Boulevard 93.
Irina.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Martha.
Yes to all.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, all rest.
Okay. Susan.
Yes to all except Boulevard 93.
Okay, Alexa, I'm voting yes to all, no to Boulevard 93. And then I believe Joan, Edwin, Daniel are not here. So we are, thank you, everyone. We'll do the math, but it seems like it was yes to all and no to Boulevard 93. But we'll do the computation. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone. And we are moving on. We have one more committee report. I don't know where my agenda is here. So we are moving on to Aging, Social Services, Disability. I believe that co-chair Ralph Leonard is going to be presenting. So go ahead, Ralph, you're on the air.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. My apologies that you can't see me. I had some technical difficulties, so I'm just calling in this evening. So the Aging, Social Services, and Disability Committee has been continued to be very active, and our most recent meeting was on this month, September 13th. We had a very interesting and very informative presentation by a woman by the name of Barbara Becker-Bruno, who is Assistant Vice President for Older Adult Services at Common Point. She informed us and told us about something that I have to say that I didn't even know existed myself. It's something that goes by the acronym of NORC, and it means Naturally Occurring Retirement Community. And the idea is to bring social services to individuals who are older and might have difficulties, in going to their services. So that presentation was very detailed. It was very informative, and we learned about, in a nutshell, the potential that NORCs have for bringing services to seniors in our community, which is obviously a very, very important thing. I think you probably all know that Forest Hills Regal Park, are a part of the city, has one of the largest concentrations of seniors in the city. So learning about NORCs and how they provide and might service our seniors, myself included, now that I'm post 62, is very important. So that was the bulk of the presentation on the 13th. Segueing into a different topic, we have very lucky to have a public member whose name is Seth Hoffman. He's a graduate of the Columbia University School of Social Work, and he has designed and put together a survey that we eventually distributed and obtained about 65 responses. And the survey focuses on seniors in our community. It is still ongoing. And so we urge everyone to, if you can, to go to the link. Maybe we can ask Alexa to redistribute the link so that we can go to the link and make sure that as many people who are older in our community sign that survey, answer that survey, so that we have a greater and more empirical basis for determining what the needs of our very large and very important community of seniors is in our city. So with that encouragement, that link should be on, I believe, on our website. We will meet again October 11th. We had some issues with meeting. Initially, we wanted to meet on the 4th, and that next meeting has been changed to October 11th. Unless anybody has any questions, I think that's pretty much what I have for you this evening.
Thanks, Ralph, and that's a good reminder. I'll put that link back on our Facebook and Twitter tomorrow and send it around to everyone. Great. So that said, we're going to move on to the good and welfare of the district. So Mark Lester, did you have something did you want to talk for the? Are you?
No. This has the good and welfare of the district.
Okay. So I just want to ask everyone to keep it brief. And, as always, there's going to be an email that I'm going to send to all the members tomorrow, just with details about voting for the land use item. But the comprehensive email with all the links and all the flyers and everything like that will go out next week. So if you have something to add, send it into the office and we'll get it out next week. So that said, Mark was number one first, and then Heidi, and then Anicia. Just please keep it brief because we have a number of also public officials, but let's take your time, but just keep it brief. Thank you. And Heidi, I see. Also
okay, yeah. So I'm going to be talking tonight about the Forest Hills Green Team. So I know we've been getting updates about the Forest Hills Green Team, so I wanted to keep the updates coming. Just to remind people, we've been doing weekly composting, and in McDonald Park, we started in mid-May. We're now up to filling 4 large containers with food scraps. So we have between 150 to 175 people stop by weekly to drop off their food scraps. We've been encouraging residents of CB6 to request a brown bin, since the city will be rolling out curbside composting, but it will not be happening in CB6 unless more people request it. Please call 311 to request your brown bin. We continue to partner with Queens Botanical Gardens and the Big Reuse, who deliver the bins for us weekly. We're open every Sunday from 10 to 1. The second thing that the Forest Hills Green Team has been involved in is we got a grant from the Citizens Committee of New York, and we did an August mobilization for environmental awareness. And that consisted of doing a class on how to take care of neighborhood street trees. We partnered with the New York City Parks Department to do that. We also planted, we've been maintaining an area on Yellowstone Boulevard between Burns and Austin Street. And what we did is we had a planting event where we went to this place called Stuyvesant Cove, who donated a whole bunch of plants, and then we planted them on Yellowstone Boulevard as part of this education. And then finally, we did a register to vote activity at our compost site, where we sponsored with Democracy NYC. And the third thing that we've been involved with is, of course, Hurricane Ida. The Forest Hills Green Team is partnering with the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit to publicize the availability of resources for people affected by Hurricane Ida. We hope that after Ida, there are no more doubters about the impact of climate change, and the Forest Hills Green Team is planning to partner with other organizations to advocate for legislation to deal with the effects of climate change. We continue to meet virtually. Our next meeting is Monday, October 18th at 6 p.m. If you're interested in learning more about the Green Team, you can go to our website, FHGT.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Up next is, I think, was Heidi next, because it all gets scrambled up. Heidi, go ahead. And then Anicia is on deck. Heidi, you're muted, I think. Yep, there you go.
Okay, I just wanted to invite everybody. Our precinct council meeting is still on Zoom. It is next Wednesday at 7:30. If you want to attend, RSVP is council112@yahoo. And if you have any questions for the captain, also email them to me and we'll have them at the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Anicia, and then Pat, you're on deck.
Okay, we are Community Board 6. We are sponsoring a webinar that is going to be COVID-19 vaccine booster shoot town hall. It's going to happen September 30th and it's going to be from 5:45 to 7:45. It's going to be on Zoom and on Facebook with Common Points Queen, which is one of the sponsors. We sponsored this event with Common Point Queens, the Office of the Queensboro President, Donald Richard, Queens Public Library, Hollis Hills Civic Association, and the Legal Good Association. So please invite your friends and just pass it to your organization. It's going to be very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Anicia. And we will send out that flyer. Either it went out or we will soon. So thank you, Anicia. Pat, you're up. Then Heather, you're on deck.
For anyone who knows anyone or anyone here who uses Accessoride, right now for any recertification, there's quite a wait. For example, they originally scheduled me for September 16th on Yom Kippur, and I had to call them and tell them, look, I'm Jewish, I can't make it on Yom Kippur, and the next appointment they offered me would probably have been in sometime in November or the end of December. Fortunately, I called back and got somebody else who was able to schedule me a little bit sooner. Right now on the recording, they're telling you that all the centers are working at 25% capacity. So there are quite a wait. And just to give you an idea of where I have to go, I was originally scheduled to go to Mid-North Bronx for my evaluation. Right now, I'm scheduled to go to Staten Island. They will be picking me up. They will be taking me home. And they write on the letter that your appointment will be longer than an hour. To please block out a proper amount of time. But do tell people that if they want to get on Accessoride, even if they're not eligible right away, just please start trying to make appointments. And tell them I'll be eligible, let's say, in January of 2022 or whatever, so you could work out a time for an appointment. Because all of those individuals who during COVID, who had their Accessoride extended, right now, they all want appointments, and there are very few available within a reasonable amount of time. Nothing, they told me, in Queens right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. So Heather and then Kevin. Heather, go ahead.
Just really quickly, a year ago, a lot of you were working very, very hard on census work, and many of those same people, Anicia and Mark, and now on our team is Peter and Tanya and others that I'm probably forgetting, make up are one of many members of the Central Queens Redistricting Coalition that is trying to focus on and amplify the work of redistricting in the state of New York. Currently, right now, New York has an independent commission that has been working on maps. They just released a set of maps as to what they think. This is the first draft of what they think the Assembly, Senate, and congressional districts should look like now that we know what those population numbers are. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. If you want to look at those maps, go to nyirc.gov and you can view the maps, you can download the maps, and if you have opinions and concerns, you can submit testimony, you can propose maps as to what you think it should look like, and you have an opportunity to provide testimony in November. They will be here in Queens in person. You can provide written testimony, and it will be at York College. And I believe it's going to be November 16th from 3 until 9 o'clock at night. So if you guys have any questions about anything redistricting, talk to any of the people's names I just rattled off, and we would love to have a conversation with you. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thanks, Heather. Kevin, you're up.
On October 6th, there is a virtual bystander intervention training. This is co-sponsored by the New York City Commission on Human Rights, the Queensboro President's Office, Queens General Assembly, and just a number of community-based organizations in Forest Hills and the Rockaways. So there's a flyer for this event too. Thank you, Alexa.
Thanks, Kevin. And just, I took a bystander training, but well before COVID, it was in person, and it was honestly one of the most important trainings I've ever been to. So I really do highly suggest it. I think it's really, really important for people to know what to do when you see something happening to someone around you. That said, thank you to our board members. You all are the best. We're going to move on to our elected official representatives, and we will hear from them also very quickly. So we have Amberito Rosero from the Queensborough President Richard's office. You there? Do we have? Yep. You have to unmute yourself. Amberito. I think we have you. Yes, you're there. Great. Floor is yours. Go ahead, please. Thank you. We can't hear you, but I see you're unmuted. So I'm not sure. Does anyone here give thumbs up, thumbs down? No. Okay.
No.
Okay, so I see you're unmuted again, but I still don't hear you. So you know what? We'll come back to you. Up next is Alexa from Assembly Member Andrew Hebese's office.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. Just some quick updates. I'll keep it brief because I know it's late and with the holiday too. So just want to let you know that we are going to be starting a series of park cleanups throughout the fall. So like every other weekend, we're going to be going out to parks throughout the district, including McDonald Park, Forest Park. So if there's any areas that you want us to, have special attention to or anything you see, definitely reach out to our office, let us know. We'll invite the board to come and partner as well. We have the supplies, the rakes, all the equipment and stuff. We actually decided to just go ahead and purchase our own equipment when we did the cleanup right after the hurricane for McDonald Park. So we just have that so we can kind of just go out and address any issues as they come up. And then just a legislative update. Most recently, we were put into contact with a few families with disabled adult children who were going to age out of their facilities. Basically, the short of the matter is that there's not adequate facilities in New York, so they get placed in other states. Once they turn 21, the funding mechanism for their placement changes, and they place them back in New York, kind of regardless of whether or not that's the best situation for them. So we're working for a long-term solution to close that loophole in the law, but in the meantime, we were able to apply enough pressure and do enough pushback so they have a 6-month stay where they're at. So we'll be able to work with other legislators and the new governor, who we're actually able to work with, for a long-term solution. So that's kind of our biggest thing that we're working on right now. And as always, always feel free to reach out to our office via email or phone, and we're always here. So thanks.
Thanks, Alexa. Amberita, were you able to unmute yourself? Do you want to try to speak one more time? Yeah, I see that you clicked and it's unmuted, but we still unfortunately don't hear you. So you might want to, if you're using a headphones or you don't, or if you aren't, maybe you should, but we'll come back again. John D'Angelo from Senator Joseph Adabo's office. Go ahead, John.
Hi, if you can hear me, good evening, everybody. I'll be brief as usual. The senator was going to try to join in, but he's at an in-person meeting. But briefly, just some upcoming events. This Sunday at Forest Park from 10 to 2, paper shredding and household good donations. The following Sunday, back at Forest Park, 10 to 2, e-waste recycling. And then we're going to do a job fair, a virtual job fair in conjunction Resorts World, the end of October. So again, I'll just leave my number, 718-497-1630. Any questions, anything you need, just please call us at the office. We're there every day. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks, John. Ricky, excuse me, Ricky from Assembly Member Daniel Rosenthal's office. Ricky, go ahead. You're muted. There you go.
Am I good?
You're good.
Oh, so good to see everyone. I missed our slumber parties. Good to see everyone. So let's go through a few quick things. Proud to support you guys with the open meetings law thing when it went to special session. as far as across one of our colleagues in Lower Manhattan, Assemblywoman New is actually proposing legislation permanent. So if we don't cover you in our assembly office, I would probably tell you to call your assembly member that represents you. She was going to be putting that in January when those would make this option permanent. So that's Assembly Bill A8134, A8134. So that would be good. And then since Dan was appointed as being the chair Food, Farm, Nutrition Task Force, chair fighting food insecurity has been pretty important around the district throughout COVID. And luckily him and Assemblywoman Rozic got that program doubled from 25 to 50 million upcoming fiscal year. So it's been an indispensable resource throughout this. So we're proud to have that coming up. Additionally, just like the senator's office, we will be having paper shredding. That's on October 24th up in Pop Using Institute. Everyone can start clearing their things out that they've been collecting. But I will send that flyer over to Christine so you all have that. That's all we have. It's good to see everyone. I hope everyone has a great night.
You're muted. Alexa, you're muted.
I just wanted to show everyone what it looked like when someone was muted and talking. So
You did a very good job.
It was acting. Michael Cohen from Councilmember Koslowitz's office. You're up.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. At the top of the meeting, Joseph Jenkins gave your board a presentation on DIFTA My Ride. This is a pilot program, as Frank indicated, something that your board has desired for a long time. It's something that Councilwoman Koslowitz had desired for a long time. It's clear to our office, your board, the general public, that the excessive right model leaves a lot to be desired. So those individuals who are fortunate enough to win the lottery and be participants in the DIFTA My Ride, if you encounter a problem, please call our office. We need to iron out these problems. We want this pilot program to work. We want Access-a-Ride replaced by a much better system. My second and final point is, somebody asked John O'Neill, I think it was John, if we see a problem, how do we know which agency to call? Please call our office and we will work out which agency or agencies need to be contacted. The only thing I'd like to add is, before you call our office, please see if you can call 311 first and get that 311 reference number, because city agencies use that as a baseline when we attack problems. And I know a few days after you get your 311 reference number, you're going to get an email saying everything is great, the problem has been resolved. Well, just ignore that and know that our office continues to work problems even when 311 says everything is just beautiful. That's it.
Thanks, Michael. So we have, I'll come back to Amparito, but we have James from Controller Stringer's office, then Jordan from Congressmember Grace Mang's office, then Maria from the mayor's office, and then we'll loop back to Amparito. So James, for his debut from Scott Stringer's office, welcome to our board.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've actually been to this board a few years ago, as this is a private citizen.
Welcome back.
Ago. Yeah, thanks. I know some of you, so it's good to see some familiar faces here. So again, my name's James Mongeluso. I'm from the Office of New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. I have a few updates for you. The first one I want to mention is one that's related to claims. There's been a lot of people filing claims with our office, claims against the city related to flooding and other related damages in connection with Hurricane Ida. So I just want to give some background on the claims issue. So first of all, if anybody wishes to file a claim, they can do so. It's your right to file a claim, and you can use the Comptroller's Office website to do so. There's a link Well, I don't know. I don't see how I can share links on this.
Yeah, the chat is disabled, but you can send it to our office and we'll put it in our follow-up email.
Got it. Okay. So there's several ways you can file a claim. You can do so in person at our office, which is at 1 Center Street in the Civic Center of Manhattan. And then you can also do it by mail, or you could do it online. We usually recommend people to do it online because it's the easiest way for you to document that you actually did it. If you do it online, you'll get a number generated immediately that you can track. You can track the status of the claim. But I just want to mention something else about claims. You know, we got a lot of inquiries from people and from elected officials, and just want to make sure that everyone understands that our office is authorized to settle claims in cases where the damage to a person, physical harm to your body, or damage to personal property is the result of city negligence. And city negligence is the key term here, because generally when we have a extreme weather storm or some sort of weather situation, that's generally not considered to be the city's fault. The city's generally not going to be found liable for a rare occurrence. So, for example, with the storm, the Hurricane Ida related rainfall, we had a record volume of water dropping in a very short amount of time. And in the recorded history of New York City, there was never another circumstance where that much water fell. So it's hard to make a case that the city was negligent or liable for flooding.
James, you got 30 seconds.
I didn't realize I was timed on this. I wouldn't have said this much. Anyway, so you're not, even if you file, you're not guaranteed to get any money, but you know, it's your right to do so. We also have our back to school guide. It's in English and Spanish on the website. Has a lot of information for those who have students in DOE schools. We can also give Bengali, traditional Chinese, Haitian Creole, French, Russian, Spanish, and Urdu translations.
All right, James. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. And if there's anything else that you want to forward, you please forward it to our board and we can send it out with our email to everyone on next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Jordan from Congressmember Meng's office. Go ahead, Jordan.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just take about a minute just to run through a couple of things. As you probably have seen, the Congresswoman has been working nonstop to assist those that have been impacted by Ida. She's traveled all across the district, including a lot in Forest Hills, as you've probably seen. A lot of constituents experienced flooding, and we've been working nonstop to help them. We've called for disaster declarations to be issued to New York, which would open up funding from FEMA and the SBA. That was done by the president a few weeks back, as you probably read about. Yesterday, we were able to secure $11 billion in federal relief for New York City. We also got a disaster recovery center established at Queens College. There are officials from FEMA and the SBA that are there daily to assist people who have been impacted. She was with the president when he came to Queens about 3 weeks ago. She brought the governor, the head of FEMA, the Homeland Security Secretary to the district so they could all see the devastation firsthand. She's talked about how the storm highlighted the need to act on climate change. She's called for increased federal investments in local mass transit. And again, is really continuing to just, kind of crisscross the district, still visiting with constituents that have been impacted. A couple of other things we've been working on, highlighting the child tax credit that families are getting every month now. We also helped secure $40 billion recently in a spending bill that would provide internet access to students and libraries that don't have them, and a couple of other things which I'll touch on at the next meeting since I know we're short on time. Thank you again. Please reach out if you need anything regarding flooding or anything else. Thanks.
Thanks, Jordan. And you're always welcome to send us anything for us to forward at any point. It doesn't have to be after a meeting if you want us to forward it to board members. So thank you. So we have Maria from the mayor's office, and then we'll go back to Amberito. So Maria, you're on. Welcome to our board. Is Maria here? Actually, I looked earlier and I don't think she is here. Okay, so Amberito, were we successful on your unmute? So I see you're unmuted. Can you say something? I mean, if we couldn't hear you, even if you were saying something, but I don't think we can hear you. So please send in your comments to us. With that, 9:31, not awful, but we can work towards the record next time. And loved seeing all your faces. So great to all be virtually back together. Thank you so much for all you do for the community. Think about what you want to do moving forward. And you'll hear from me via email tomorrow. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Everyone's like, aye. Great. Second.
Second.
Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm stopping the recording and I'm stopping the live feed. Thank you, everyone else. And everyone.
Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Frank. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you all soon.
Thank you all.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Good night. Be well. Be safe.
Leave. Yeah, I think so.